Just one thing at the top, and then we can get going with some questions. Since this weekend's tragic shooting in Colorado Springs, we've learned more about those killed in the senseless attack. All started their Saturday night like so many Americans, going to work, going out with friends and families, but lives were cut short by senseless and an act of violence. Kelly Long had just turned 40 last week. Her sister remembered her publicly as a, and I quote, wonderful person who was loving and caring and sweet and always put others before herself. A friend of Kelly's recalled her being supportive and selfless and had looked forward to seeing her for Thanksgiving this week. Daniel Austin was just 28 years old. He was a bartender and entertainer at Club Q who overcame being teased by peers in school as a child and found joy in performing. Daniel's mother, Sabrina, was one of his biggest fans and would bring friends and family to his performance at Club Q. She said, and quote, lit up a room. He lit up a room. Derek Rump was also just 38 years old. His friends told the Washington Post that Derek was, quote, what made Club Q, end quote. A bartender, performer, and an avid Britney Spears fan. Friends and customers remembered Derek for making everyone feel welcome at Club Q. They talked about his positivity, kindness, and generosity, recalling he had a heavy, poor, and was a great listener. But Derek helped people outside Club Q too. When the pandemic hit and some of his friends and colleagues struggled with rent and groceries, Derek stepped in to help. Ashley Paw, her sister, remembered Ashley as a loving mother and wife who leaves behind an 11-year-old daughter. Ashley's sister described her as being a devoted mom for whom her daughter was at the center of her life. She spoke about the hole that will exist for their family this Thanksgiving and forever after. Raymond Green Vance was only 22 years old, just 22. His family described him as a kind, selfless young adult with his entire life ahead of him. Raymond had recently gotten a new job at Colorado Springs at FedEx Distribution Center and was working to save up money for an apartment. He was part of a tight-knit family who had spoken about the irreparable heartbreak in their lives. This attack occurred on the eve of Transgender Day of Remembrance, when the community was already mourning the transgender people, especially transgender women of color, who have been killed over the past years, and added 2 more to that count. This attack also comes amidst a rise in violent rhetoric and threats against the LGBTQI+ people across the country. While we don't know yet for certain the motive of this attack, hate has no place in this country, and neither do military-style assault rifles, which is why we will continue to push for an assault weapons ban. Over and over again, we have seen these weapons used to inflict death and terror in our communities just across the country. Weapons of war do not belong on our streets, in our churches, in our movie theaters, in our malls, in our groceries, in our schools, or in our nightclubs. The courageous actions of Richard Fierro and Thomas James and others we are still learning about stopped the gunman before he could kill others. Richard and Thomas are heroes, and we are so grateful for their quick action, and there are no words at all, that can bring comfort to those who are grieving, but we stand with the community of Colorado Springs and the LGBTQI+ community. I will add, the president just moments ago spoke to Richard and his wife Jess. He offered his condolences to them, and also there's his support, and talk through what it's like to grieve. As you know, the president, that is something that he is able to do very personally, and thank him for his bravery and, again, for his just instinct to act and the ability, by him doing that, saving maybe dozens of lives. With that, Chris?
Two questions. First off, on what you're just speaking of, given the anti-trans rhetoric that has been so prevalent even in the wake of the shooting, what plans does the president have to speak more about this? What else is the White House planning to do on that specific issue?
So I would say that the president has been very vocal about speaking against violence, as you've heard him many times before over the past, not just 20 months, but throughout his career. He's been very clear that hate, political violence have no place at all. Not just in our political discourse, but just in everyday lives of American people. And we will continue to do that. We will continue to call this out. We will continue to be very clear how when you hear this type of when you see this type of hatred, again, I want to be very careful because there's an investigation going on, so I don't want to get ahead of the investigation. But just more broadly, hate and political violence has no place in any community.